If you're like most people, you probably either loved or hated The Irishman. One thing we all can agree on is that the movie is very long. But perhaps the most important question is, does it get the facts right? Does The Irishman true story line up with what's seen in the film? Obviously, the most important question is, did Frank Sheeran kill Jimmy Hoffa? In this video, I'm going to tell you why The Irishman was likely a $200 million lie. Martin Scorsese based The Irishman on Charles Brandt's 2004 non-fiction book, I Heard You Paint Houses. Charles Brandt was the lawyer who got Frank Sheeran out of prison on medical grounds. Over the next decade, Frank Sheeran, who's portrayed by Robert De Niro in the film, grew sick with cancer. According to Charles Brandt, Sheeran confided in him and told him that he killed Jimmy Hoffa, among other things. So Brandt and Sheeran came up with the idea to turn this story into a book. And what book would sell better than one that claims to reveal who killed Jimmy Hoffa? It's important to note that there have been at least 14 people who have claimed responsibility for Jimmy Hoffa's death. Frank Sheeran's claim was by no means unique. Publishers were skeptical as well, and it took Charles Brandt at least 3 tries to get the book published. At least one publisher backed out of the deal after a letter was discovered that Frank Sheeran forged, which he said was from Jimmy Hoffa. And after the book was published, some began to wonder whether Frank Sheeran made up the story in order to secure his family money from the book deal. The book went on to become a bestseller, with Sheeran passing away shortly before it was published. Now, the forged letter isn't the only red flag. In fact, Frank Sheeran had previously said that he didn't kill Jimmy Hoffa. In 1995, he told the Philadelphia Daily News, "I did not kill Hoffa and I had nothing to do with it." Then in 2001, just 2 years before his death and 3 years before the book was published, Frank Sheeran said that Sal Briguglio was the killer, which has been a long-held theory. Now, you would think that after the book was published, the FBI would want to investigate Sheeran's claims that he killed Hoffa. Well, they did. They went to the house where Frank Sheeran said that he shot Hoffa twice. The FBI found 28 spots of blood in the house, but when they tested some of the drops against Jimmy Hoffa's DNA, it did not match. Now, to be fair, this was almost 30 years after the 1975 disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. It's still possible that further testing of the blood in floorboards using advanced forensics techniques could confirm Sheeran's assertion. Now, does doing in Hoffa at this house make sense? Not really. The house was very close to other homes, so gunshots certainly could have been heard from the neighbors. And furthermore, this house was 20 to 25 minutes from the Marcus Red Fox restaurant where Hoffa was picked up. That would leave Jimmy Hoffa with plenty of time to think about the meeting and the intentions of the men in the car with him. Now, there's another location that makes more sense. It is the home of Detroit mobster Carlo Licata, which was less than 2 miles away from the Marcus Red Fox restaurant and not even a 5-minute drive. Hoffa had been to Licata's home before for meetings, so he would have been comfortable going there. The home also sat up on a hill by itself, away from any other neighbors. Licata's home makes sense for another reason. Carlo Licata was co-owner of Central Sanitation, a mob-run sanitation company where it is believed that Hoffa's body was possibly disposed of, likely incinerated. Now, does the FBI consider Frank Sheeran to be a suspect? Well, it considers him to be one of about a dozen men who are suspected of playing a role in Jimmy Hoffa's death. That includes disposing of his remains. The FBI's Hoffex memo, which was put out by Agent Robert Garrity, who led the Bureau's investigation into Hoffa's disappearance, states that while Sheeran was present in Detroit at the time and was likely involved in some way in the plot, it was actually mafia enforcer Sal Briguglio who was involved in the actual disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. This is in line with the theory around Jimmy Hoffa's death that has become most widely accepted, that while Frank Sheeran was possibly present in the car to put Hoffa at ease on the way to the meeting, it was actually Sal Briguglio who played a key role in his murder. In investigating The Irishman true story, there are plenty of other questionable assertions made by the movie and book. In fact, Frank Sheeran becomes an almost Forrest Gump-like mafia figure, doing everything from delivering a bag of rifles to be used in the Kennedy assassination, to playing a role in provisioning the anti-Fidel Castro forces, to delivering $500,000 in cash to Attorney General John Mitchell, which was a bribe for President Richard Nixon to pardon Hoffa. And then there's Frank Sheeran's claim that he killed Crazy Joe Gallo. Witnesses at the time, including Gallo's wife, said that a short, stocky Italian man killed Gallo. In all, Frank Sheeran said that he killed 25 to 30 people. However, he was never convicted for killing a single person. He had been indicted for ordering 2 murders, but not for carrying them out, and he was never convicted. In reality, the only person who's ever accused Frank Sheeran of killing anybody, including Jimmy Hoffa, is Frank Sheeran himself. Mobsters typically don't have a history of getting away with repeated crimes for very long. The notion that Frank Sheeran killed 25 to 30 people is a bit of a stretch. Director Martin Scorsese seems to have been more concerned with making a memorable movie than one that gets at the true story of Jimmy Hoffa's death. Arguably, maybe that's to our benefit, but it's certainly not history's gain. If you want to learn more about the Irishman true story, including the murder of Joey Gallo and Jimmy Hoffa's death, check out our article over on historyversushollywood.com that's linked in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. Anchors away, everybody.